Hello, welcome to Code Engineering Episode 4. So, in previous episode, we have Dockerized our Hello service, which is the one consumed by our Hello client. Now, to go forward, we're going to make it easier for us to trigger requests to Hello client, which will in turn communicate with Hello service through gRPC protocol by making Hello client into a REST API. By making Hello client into a REST API, we can easily trigger it through a web browser if we provided some request mapping to the GET request. Then that will make us easier to actually trigger Hello client. And on top of that, what we are going to do going forward is to make this simple network architecture. So this will be the diagram where we will have internet, public internet able to access the Hello client, while Hello client can access the Hello service, but Hello service cannot be accessed by outside. So that is what we call it private subnet, while Hello client will be a public subnet, and everything will be under what it is called in AWS as VPC or virtual private network. So these are the things that we're going to create in AWS in the following future. In order to be prepared on that, we will upgrade our Hello client into a web application in this episode. Okay, so in order to do that, first of all, we're going to prepare for the POM. Okay, so because we're going to create into a REST API, we're going to also integrate this one with Spring Boot. And in order to do that, we're going to prepare the bill of material for the Spring Boot so that it will be easy for us to actually later on manage the versions of each dependency we need. In order to do that, we will have the dependency management with dependencies of the Spring Boot. So that's one part prepared. The next is we're going to define what are we needed from the Spring Boot itself, and that would be the actuator and also the web starter. Let me prepare it. So this is the Spring Boot part. Okay, another thing that we're going to do here is we're going to replace our direct dependency to gRPC with the Spring Boot library, Spring Boot complete library of the gRPC, which basically what we did, similar with what we did with the Hello service. Because we have this, we no longer need to do this because it is indirectly this library will have already dependency to that gRPC things. Okay, now once this is all done, we can sync the Maven. While it is processing, we can going forward. Oh, before that, later on, because we're going to test this anyway, we need the Hello service to be up and running. In order to do that, to continue with what we did in previous episode, we already have a Docker on it, right? So we can just do this. Docker run desp 8080 and then the name of the Docker image that we are having for the Hello service. Okay, once we run that, later on the Hello service will be ready for the Hello client to communicate with. Now for the terminal, I'm going back to here first and we continue. So we already have the dependency we need with the bill of material. Next is we going to need to prepare for the setting. So the setting in what you call this Spring Boot will be under the resources folder. Okay, so we need to prepare for that. There is resource bundle. Let me just copy from this one, copy and paste it here. The name still the same. Now in this application.yaml, we need to change several things, of course. First of all, we need to change this into hello client. Okay, that's our application name. We are not exposing gRPC, so for this one let's expose 8081 as server port. Now next is about the gRPC target. Okay, in current implementation, if you notice, what we do is we define it directly here. We have the localhost and 8080 directly in the inside the code. But because we now migrating our implementation to use the gRPC library that is that can be related with Spring Boot, we can define our address of the downstream dependencies, because Hello Service is the downstream dependencies of Hello Client, inside the application.yaml. In order to do that, what we need is another section here called gRPC, and then the client we want, and then the name of the client we want to address this with. Let's call it Hello Service. Then for the address, because for the discovery of the service later on we just going to use some load balancer's address or DNS, we can just define a static address here with the name of hello localhost. For now it's a localhost 8080. Remember just now we do docker run on port 8080 for the hello service. And then for the rest of it, let's put some additional configuration here, which is the enable keep alive without calls, and negotiation. So this is to make the connection still up. Then that's about the settings. So we prepare the POM XML, we prepare the application.yaml, and now let's start the code. The entry of any Spring Boot application would be a void main, which we will call here hello client application. Okay, and we need to annotate it with a Spring Boot application. Then PSVM, this is something specific in IntelliJ. Then Spring application dot run, pass in the class name and the args. Now we have Spring Boot entry point ready. Next is we'll prepare the service. Okay, so it will be hello client service. This will hold the logic where it connects via gRPC to the hello service backend. So we annotate it with the add service, and then we will have the gRPC client annotation, which is, if you can see it, it's from the library we just imported inside our POM XML. Okay, and then we put in the name that we put inside the application.yaml as our client. So this hello service will later on represent all the setting there, including the address, which is localhost 8080 for the hello service. Now this will be private. This will be a stub. We can just copy here. The stub will be this hello response, not hello response. It will be this one, the blocking stub. Okay. So private hello service blocking stub. This will be, let's call this hello service. Okay. Maybe hello service stub. No, just hello service enough. Then what we're going to do, we're going to expose some function for the client, for the service. Let's call it print message, which will take in the input. Okay, and what it will do, it will send this input the hello service. We can look at our previous implementation here on how to do it, which is basically this one, right? And then there you go. We don't need the new blocking stub because we have the stub up there in the hello service. Okay, now the message, instead of a hard-coded one here, will take in the input. Okay, and then we'll return the response.getMessage, and it will return towards the REST controller, which we haven't created yet. Now remember that we also want to define deadline for it. Previously we have this function which we need to modify when we are using this gRPC library, because the gRPC library having the stub, so we have to replace this input, and let's just rename this with deadline, and then instead of this we will have the stub directly, and then we'll do this. Now a better practice is for this kind of number to be stated as a constant. Preval final static string deadline in millisecond. Okay, it will be 3000. Private, let's see, required type string profile. Oh, right, it's integer. Then we'll use this value. Okay, so instead of hello service directly, we cover this with this. Now we don't need to do the system out println anymore, because we can just see the output in the web browser later on. So we have the HelloClient service ready. Then to make this a REST API, we will need a REST controller. HelloClient controller. And this will be a REST controller. And we will need the HelloClient service, which is we can do auto wiring thanks to all the dependency injection framework from the Spring Boot. Now we need the entry point in a request mapping. Let's just make our root path to serve us here. it will return a string print message. Okay, and then we also will give some request param, which can have a default value of welcome. We provide default value so that if we are lazy to pull in some custom value, we can get away with it without any error. Let me put this down. Final string input. Okay, now this input later on will be passed into the service dot print message input. And there you go, we have the controller ready, the controller wired to the service, and everything is ready. Basically, we can test it out by running this. Previously, remember, we already ran a Docker for the Hello service. So, did I click? Yeah, it's currently processing to build the Spring Boot application for the HelloClient. Now it's starting in HelloClient application starting. It's started already now. Let's test it in the browser. So remember, in our setting we expose it into 8081. So let's see, 8081 I've prepared here with input message, custom message. No, I think our request param just now name is input, not input message. So the request is being sent. Deadline exceeded after 1.3 seconds. Okay, seems like it's timing out. Let's us try again. Okay, deadline exceeded again. So it seems like, let me check whether the Hello service is still up. Hello service still up in XD. So somehow the deadline always exceeded. So let's try to increase our stop deadline. So this is 5 seconds. It's pretty weird though that this is actually getting very slow. But let's see. And it's exceeded after 2 seconds. There you go. So somehow the deadline is actually not going well just now. But after we increase the deadline, everything's working well. So that's what you also need to adjust when you are testing your applications. And there you go. That's about it. We already converted. Oh, one more thing actually. We need to delete this because we no longer need this. Okay. So previously, this is the previous code where we directly integrate with gRPC and then sending several response up. Now we can remove this, delete. Okay, there you go. Now we have our HelloClient converted into a REST API where we can trigger uh, our application through web browser easily now. So thank you for watching. Wait for the next episode. Press subscribe and like this if you really like this. Bye.